Well, shalom, shalom. Welcome, welcome, world changers. And thank you again, Hannah, for the beautiful music. That was amazing, amazing as always. Beautiful. All right, so tonight we are going to get into a study of Judges, the book of Judges. We're going to start out with Judges chapter 1, and then we're going to go on from there. We'll see how far we get, Lord willing. I pray that everything that we share here today would be a great blessing to you. Increase your knowledge of the scriptures, your knowledge of the things of heaven, your relationship with God, and your knowledge of the truth. Amen, amen, amen. All right, well, let's see what we have here in the live chat before we get into it. And you know what I'm going to do, folks? I am going to do something very, very different. I am going to open the live chat for all, and I'm also going to try out a new feature that YouTube has contacted me and letting me know that there is a new feature that is available. And this feature is something that I actually posted about in the post section for the members to vote on. Some of you may know what I'm talking about here, and I just wanted to see if I just go over here to double check on the status, if you will, on that poll. All right. Well, yeah. Okay. So the majority of you have voted that we should try this out all week long. There has been a minor. The minor vote says to try it out for at least one day. Here's the thing. So in this new feature, instead of well, basically, we can set a time, what would you say, like a timer that will determine when the live stream will go from a public live stream to a members only live stream. So we're going to try this out. And in the meantime, I'm going to open the live chat for everyone here. And then a little bit later on, we'll put the timer on and we will try out the feature and we'll see how it goes. If it goes well, we'll keep it on. If it doesn't, well, we won't do that. But let's see what we can do here. What's going to happen is if you are a member, if you're a member, then I don't think you're going to really see any difference at all. It'll be a seamless transition between the public live stream into a members only live stream. If you're not a member, you will be prompted to become a member at whenever the timer is up. So we're not going to do this right away here. We'll wait a little while. So now the live stream is open for the public. So if you are listening to this and whether you're a member or not, you're welcome here to engage in the live chat. All right. I am live right now on many different platforms. I'm live on Kick. I'm live on Facebook, Twitch, DLive, Rumble, Trovo, Instagram, BitChute, X, TikTok, and YouTube. And so what we're going to do here again, it's going to be like a public live stream on YouTube, and I'm going to be responding to all the chats, and then it will go into a members only live stream on YouTube, and then on the other chats I'm going to focus only on the chat on YouTube. So we'll see how it goes. All right. Well, let's see what we have here in the live chat before we get into it. Felix says, hi, friends. Calamento says, shalom to all. Chipmunk says, shalom, everyone. Al says, shalom, all. And we have W. Dill over there on Kick. And Seek the Lord says, shalom. Chipmunk says, wonderful job, Hannah. Al says, shalom. Seek the Lord. Beautiful music always, Hannah. And Chipmunk says, it's interesting to see how each creator is using or not using this feature. All right, well, thank you, guys. Shalom, shalom. Welcome and blessings multiplied to you and your families. And thank you, Chipmunk, and thank you, Al, on behalf of Hannah. I know she appreciates that. Yeah, Chipmunk, I don't know of any creator right now that uses this feature, so it's all new to me. I don't know how it works, and if it's going to work, I have no idea. All I know is that YouTube has contacted me about this, and we'll try it out. We'll see how it goes. If it works, okay. And of course, those of you who are members, your voice is heard, and we will also do a poll sometime in the very, very near future in regards to whether or not we should continue using this feature or not. All right, well, we got a very interesting study here coming up. We have a critical thinking segment as usual. You know what happened earlier today? I saw a video on TikTok there was this lady who said that you can't be religious and a critical thinker at the same time. You can't have anything to do with religion and also critical thinking. And this is what she said. I'm like, it's the opposite. If your religion does not allow critical thinking, get a new religion. So we will get into critical thinking as we usually do, and then we're going to dive into the book of Judges, chapter 1, verse 1. And we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the historical essence, the cultural essence behind it, the scholarly analysis behind it. We will get into it deeper than we have ever got into it ever. So, all right, just want to make sure that I cover all bases here. So, all right, so another reminder, November 9th, 10th, and 11th, we will have our 3-day fast. And then January 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, we're going to do another 3-day full fast. And then for another 18 days after that, we'll do a partial fast. So in January, it will be a fast from January 1st to January 21st. The first 3 days will be a intense fast. And then the remaining 18 days of those 3 weeks will be a partial fast. And of course, we're going to engage in some very intense prayer and spiritual warfare during this time of fasting. Oh, I see. There's Veritas's. Okay, there you have it, Chipmunk. Veritas over here. For some reason in the live chat, Veritas doesn't always come through. So here it is right here. All right. So yeah. Chipmunk says, can you give us a riddle? And 5 minutes later, the answer to the riddle. And the riddle is, I can certainly do that. Here's a riddle for you all. I speak without a mouth, I hear without ears, I have no body, but I come alive with wind. What am I? I will give the answer in about 5 minutes. Well, that's interesting. I wasn't even aware that something like this is possible. Gives you something to think about in the meantime, that's for sure. All right. Anyways, let's see what we got here for a critical thinking segment. Thank you, Chipmunk, by the way. Awesome stuff. I'm interested to know if Veritas is going to come through here in 5 minutes to give us the answer. If anybody has any ideas of how to solve this riddle. Chipmunk says, using our critical thinking. Very good. Yes, good stuff. Thanks, Chipmunk. All right, that's awesome. Okay, so here we are, critical thinking, the critical thinking segment. When you're faced with two opposing arguments and both sides claim to have evidence, oh, we have this a lot, don't we? It can be confusing. A critical thinker knows that the mere presence of evidence is not enough. The quality of that evidence is everything. Think of any belief or conclusion as a destination on the other side of a deep canyon. An argument is the bridge that claims it can get there safely. The evidence is the material used to build that bridge. Welcome, Arkanoa. Blessings to you. Arkanoa says, Shalom all. Just wanted to say hi. I'm busy with family. Okay, well, shalom and blessings multiplied to you and your family. Hope all is well. Good to see you again. Now imagine two builders. The first builds a bridge out of sturdy steel beams, anchored in deep concrete footings with careful engineering. The second throws a few old rotten wooden planks across the gap. Both are technically bridges, but you would only trust one of them with your weight. Our job as critical thinkers is to become expert bridge inspectors. We don't just look at where the bridge is going. We must rigorously test the materials it's made of. Here are 3 simple stress tests you can apply to any argument. Stress test number 1, the test of quality, steel versus rotted wood. This test is about the type of material being used to build the argument. Not all evidence is of the same quality. High quality evidence, steel beams. This is strong, reliable material. It includes primary sources, first-hand accounts, the original text, or it also includes verifiable facts. Here we go. Verifiable facts from multiple independent and credible sources. Expert consensus from respected scholars in that specific field. Poor quality evidence, rotted wood. This is weak material that looks like evidence but will crumble under pressure. It includes hearsay. Well, I heard someone say, or single anecdotes, like I know a person who. Appeals to emotion. Arguments that rely on making you feel something, not think something. Opinions from biased or anonymous sources. The question to ask, what are the actual materials this argument is made out of? Is it built with the steel of verifiable fact or the rotting planks of anecdote and opinion? Stress test number 2. The test of quality, a bridge versus a plank. This test is about the sufficiency of the evidence. A single piece of evidence, even a good one, rarely makes for a trustworthy bridge. High quality evidence, a full bridge. A strong argument is supported by multiple lines of converging evidence. The historical and textual evidence and the logical evidence all point in the same direction, creating a wide, stable, and trustworthy structure. Then we have poor quality evidence, a single plank. A weak argument often rests its entire weight on one single piece of evidence. One isolated quote taken out of context, one ambiguous fact, or one personal interpretation. Oh, that's a good one. One personal interpretation. This is like trying to cross a canyon by balancing on a single narrow plank. It's incredibly precarious. The question to ask, is this a fully constructed bridge built on a convergence of evidence, or is it just a single plank that could snap at any moment? Stress test number 3, the test of fit. A bridge to the right place. This test is about relevance and logical coherence. The materials must not only be strong and plentiful, but they must also be assembled correctly to actually reach the intended destination. Good fit, a well-destined bridge. The evidence presented directly and logically supports the specific conclusion being made. The reasoning is sound, and the connections are clear. The bridge actually connects your starting point to the destination. Poor fit, a bridge to nowhere. This is where the evidence, even if it is true and of high quality, doesn't logically lead to the conclusion. The bridge stops halfway across the canyon or points in the wrong direction. This happens when the argument contains logical fallacies or makes huge, unsupported leaps. The question to ask, does this evidence, even if it's good, logically force me to accept this specific conclusion, or is the builder making a leap that the evidence itself doesn't support? Today's challenge. When faced with competing claims, don't be fooled just by both sides. When both sides say they have evidence, a critical thinker is a structural engineer. You must test the quality, the quantity, and the fit of that evidence to determine which bridge is actually safe to cross. Your challenge for today is to perform one quick bridge inspection. The next time you hear someone make an argument on the news, in your reading, or from a friend, don't just accept or reject their conclusion. Pick one piece of evidence they offer and run it through our first stress test, the test of quality. Silently ask yourself, is this a steel beam or a rotting plank? Is this a verifiable fact from a credible source, or is it just an opinion, an anecdote, or an appeal to emotion? The goal is to get into the habit of not just seeing an argument, but of instinctively testing its strength. Okay. Awesome. All right, folks. Well, we're going to get into the book of Judges here, Judges chapter 1. And we'll go here. We have some very interesting things to talk about here, because the book of Judges is another chapter in the history of the children of Israel. So we went from Genesis. Of course, we go from the creation story to Abraham, and then Abraham finally going on until we get to Moses in the book of Exodus. And so, of course, throughout the book of Exodus, we do have the Torah. We see this all the way through the book of Exodus. From the Garden of Eden, we see the Torah, the instructions that God gave Adam and Eve, all the way through to see the Abel and the sacrifices that Abel brought, and in Cain as well, although Cain didn't meet them very well. We have a Genesis aged or Genesis time patriarch as well, which is Job, from the book of Job, although we didn't read that book yet, and not this particular iteration of it. Job as well. You see the Torah there. You may say, how can you say you see the Torah in the book of Job? Well, it's certainly implied. Let me give you an example. So Job knew what sin was, and he knew what righteousness was. He knew how to live right. We know that it says in the scriptures that we don't know really the difference between right and wrong unless we have a Torah. The Torah is what tells us what is right, what is sin, what is wickedness. So there's no way Job would know what sin is in the eyes of God or what righteousness is in the eyes of God without a Torah. He had a Torah. And God is not a God of multiple standards or double standards. There's only one God, one Lord, one faith, one Father. one law, one word of God, one standard. He's not a God of double standards, and that standard is his Torah. So Job had the same Torah as any of the other patriarchs did, including Moses. Genesis chapter 26, verse 5, it says that Abraham obeyed the Torah. Abraham obeyed it. It literally says Torah there, long before Moses ever showed up on the scene. Then Moses came, of course. And so we see right from the very beginning that when man is left to his own devices, if you will, he will fall into sin very quickly. How long do you think it took for Adam and Eve to fall into sin after God walked away? You say, what? God walked away? Well, it says that he came back. He said he came back to Adam and Eve and confronted them. So yeah, he walked away in that sense. Or maybe you could say they walked away from him, if you want to put it that way. Whatever the case was, they weren't in each other's presence all the time. So how long do you think it took? Minutes, hours, days? Not long. When Moses went up Mount Sinai and he left the children of Israel, how long did it take for them to get into sin? He wasn't gone for any more than 40 days, if you take it literally. And by the time he came back, they were in deep sin. And now it's just a matter of days. Just a matter of days, So whenever God walks away, or whenever the leader, a great leader, is gone for a while or taken away, if you will, the people typically fall into sin very quickly. Hegesippus, the early church historian, said that after the 12 disciples all passed on, the church fell into sin very quickly. I remember years ago speaking with a gentleman who contacted me, and he was studying the early church fathers quite rigorously, and he had some questions about, the early church fathers said this, and this one said that, and this one said the other thing, and he got very confused based upon the early church fathers' teachings. Now, the early church fathers do have some good teachings, no doubt about it. Hey, they came right, they were close to the, to the fact. However, we should always take it with a grain of salt, because we see how the church and the people of God, the children of Israel, Adam and Eve, the children of Israel in the days of Moses, fell into sin quite quickly. So we need to keep that in mind when we're reading the early church fathers. The book of Judges is this pivotal chapter in the history of the children of Israel, where their leader is gone. They don't have an Abraham anymore. They don't have a Noah anymore. Moses is gone, and Joshua, the great Joshua, has passed away. So now they're like sheep without a shepherd. And this is where things start going wrong. They start falling into grave sin, error, crime, if you will, crime in the eyes of God, starting in the book of Judges. So this time period is roughly 1200 to 1050 BC. 1200 to 1050 BC, which would be like the late Bronze Age, or Iron Age 1, if you will. This was a time of geopolitical chaos, and we'll see this as we go through the book of Judges. The great empires, we have the Egyptians, the Hittites, were in retreat, leaving a power vacuum in Canaan. So what happened? What did we just read not too long ago in the book of Joshua? So we had an idealized, idealized swift and complete conquest. We had the great leader Joshua, that was, heading the conquest and looking after all the projects. And so there was, even though there were some times of failure, and they did have their valleys that they went through, it was quite a book, quite a time of victory. So what happens in this next generation when these great patriarchs are gone? What does it look like on the ground, if you will? With or it's almost like a vacuum of a good leader as well. So Judges presents a starkly different and more chaotic, and you could say more rubber meets the road kind of theology and history than we see in the book of Joshua. It's a story of compromise. It's a story of failure, covenant failure. It's a book of consequences. We read in the last line of the book, the last line of the book of Judges, right here. We read how it says, "In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did that which was right in his own eyes." And so this is not optimal. This is not the best this is not God's best for them. So let's start with the book of Judges. And we're gonna go into, let's start with Judges chapter 1 and verse 1. Share the live stream, folks. Share with your family, friends, co-workers, neighbors, pastor, even if you got a pastor, whoever that would be interested in getting into this, because we're going to get into this nitty-gritty. I'm not aware of any Bible schools that even get into it as deep as we're going to get into it tonight. What you're getting tonight is going to be deeper than Bible schools that I know of. Let's put it that way. Okay, so Judges chapter 1. After the death of Joshua, the children of Israel asked of Yahweh, saying, "Who should go up for us first against the Canaanites to fight against them?" Yahweh said, "Judah shall go up. Behold, I have delivered the land into his hand." Judah said to Simeon his brother, "Come up with me into my lot, that we may fight against the Canaanites. And I likewise will go up with you into your lot." Okay. So here we have, this is after the death of Joshua, as we just in the very first verse here. So the leadership vacuum is immediate. And so Israel basically asks of God, who shall go up first, seeking his guidance. So this was likely decided by the casting of lots, like the Urim and the Thummim. This would be the lights and perfections, as they call it, and it's like the casting. It's like a random thing. The high priest had a breastplate on, and they had these 12 precious stones in the breastplate, and the Urim and the Thummim would be the way that the light shined. I'm not sure exactly how it was done, and I don't think anybody really knows exactly how it was done, whether it was put in the sunlight or however it was done. It was like a random. They determined God's will using Urim and the Thummim by either the reflection of the light off of these stones or the emanation of light from these stones, and other kind of details that they would get from this kind of thing. So it begins with a positive start here, that they're asking of God, they're inquiring of God. So it begins on a positive note. And then Judah and Simeon's tribes formed an alliance, and Simeon's territory was locked with Judah's. So this reflects the historical reality that the tribe of Simeon was eventually absorbed into the more powerful Judah. So then we got verse 4. 5, I'll read to the end of the paragraph here. Judah went up, and Yahweh delivered the Canaanites and the Perizzites into their hand. They struck 10,000 men in Bezek. They found Adoni-bezek in Bezek, and they fought against him. They struck the Canaanites and the Perizzites, but Adoni-bezek fled. They pursued him, caught him, and cut off his thumbs and his big toes. Adoni-bezek said, 70 kings, having their thumbs and their big toes cut off, scavenged under my table, as I have done, so God has done to me. They brought him to Jerusalem, and he died there. Okay, so a few things here. Adoni-bezek. There is a couple other parts in the scriptures that we can go to in regards to this weird naming convention. And I use the word weird in our relative to us. So we got Adoni-bezek. So what is, it's Adoni-bezek means literally the Lord of Bezek, or Bezek, the Lord of Bezek. So we have something very similar to this name in Joshua chapter 10, and verse 1 says, now when Adoni-zedek, king of Jerusalem, heard how Joshua had taken Ai, so Adoni-zedek versus Adoni-bezek. Right here, Adoni-bezek. So it's the same kind of thing. We have the Lord of Bezek versus the Lord of Bezek, the Lord of Zedek. Now, there's also another title that's very similar to both of these other names / titles, and that is Melchizedek. Adoni-zedek means Lord of Zedek, which literally means Lord of righteousness. And then we have, as many of you are familiar with, the name of Melchizedek, which is literally Melchizedek, which means the King of righteousness, the Lord of righteousness. And then we have the King of righteousness. So the King of righteousness, Melchizedek, the King of Salem. Now, we do have as well in the book of Hebrews, explains this a little bit more. Hebrews talking about Melchizedek and Adoni-zedek. Give me a second here, folks. Okay. Hebrews chapter 5, verse 6, as he says in another place, you are priests forever after the order of Melchizedek, or Melchizedek. And then it goes on to explain it a little bit more a little bit later here. Okay, so verse 10, named by God a high priest after the order of Melchizedek. So we go over, looking at Hebrews chapter 7, verse 2. Gives us a little bit more information here. Hebrews chapter 7, verse 1. Sorry, folks. Then we'll read also verse 2, and that gives us a little bit more information. For this Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of God Most High, who met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him, to whom also Abraham divided a tenth part of all, being first by interpretation. This it means basically the name Melchizedek means king of righteousness, and then also king of Salem. So Melchizedek literally means king of righteousness. Melchi means king, and Sadiq means righteousness. And Joshua chapter 10, Adoni-bezek means Lord of righteousness. So in Genesis 14, Abraham met this man, and I say man, I know that a lot of people think that it was Jesus or the pre-incarnate Jesus or an angel. It could have been. However, it seems to me like it is more than likely a man, because of the historical context in the naming convention here. Because Melchizedek means king of righteousness, and king of Salem means king of the city of Salem, which is actually the ancient historical proto-name of Jerusalem. Jerusalem used to be called Salem. So Salem was a city that eventually changed its name to Jerusalem. So we got Melchizedek, king of Salem, and then later on down the road in the book of Joshua, we have Adoni-bezek, Lord of righteousness, king of Salem, king of Jerusalem. And then we have in Judges chapter 1, we just read here, Adoni-bezek. Very similar. In those days, historically speaking, kings, every city had its own king. You think now, if a country, if any place has a king, it's a king over a country, right? Usually a king over a country, but not in those days. It was a king over a city. So in this case, it's Adoni-bezek. Adoni-bezek. All right, and this is found in verse 5. So the practice of it says here they cut off his thumbs and his big toes. And then Adoni-bezek said 70 kings having their thumbs and their big toes cut off. scavenged under my table. So here, historically speaking, folks, historically speaking, the practice of mutilating defeated kings, in this case, cutting off their big thumbs and their big toes, was a symbolic form of humiliation and incapacitation in the ancient Near East. It prevented them from effectively wielding a weapon or leading an army. So it's basically a way to incapacitate them. So, verse 7, we have it where Adoni-bezek says, "As I have done, so God has done to me." This is very much like the eye for eye kind of thing. It's a perfect illustration of the principle of eye for an eye. So he recognizes a form of divine justice in his fate. And this is amazing. So even though he had this happen to him and he was defeated, he still recognized this unfortunate circumstance that he was in as a form of divine justice in his fate. Okay, let's move on. Verse 8. The children of Judah fought against Jerusalem, took it, struck it with the edge of the sword, and set the city on fire. After that, the children of Judah went down to fight against the Canaanites who lived in the hill country and in the south and in the lowland. Judah went against the Canaanites and lived in Hebron. The name of Hebron before that was Kiriath Arba. They struck Sheshai, Ahiman, and Talmai. So this is verse 8, 9, and 10. If you check this out here, where it says, the children of Judah fought against Jerusalem, took it, struck it with the edge of the sword, and set the city on fire. You'll see here a little bit later in verse 21, right here, right at the top. The children of Benjamin didn't drive out the Jebusites who inhabited Jerusalem, but the Jebusites dwell with the children of Benjamin in Jerusalem to this day. So notice the apparent contradiction here. See, verse 8 says that Judah captured and burned Jerusalem, but verse 21 says that the Benjamites did not drive out the Jebusites. This here is a classic example of the complex and multi-layered nature of the text. It reflects a long drawn-out conflict where the city was captured but not permanently held by Israel until the time of David. This will be in 2 Samuel chapter 5. All right. Back up to verse... We left off at verse 11. So what I'm going to do here, let me see what we have in the live chat, and then we'll pick up here in verse 11, and then we're going to start with our the new feature here we want to try out, see how it works. We'll give it a few days here of trying it out and see if it works okay. Then, well, so be it. If not, then we'll take it as we gotta play it by ear sometimes, folks. Kubert says, Shalom, Shalom, Kuberts. Welcome and blessings multiplied to you and yours. Chipmunk, you're holding Veritas to the to his promise. Yeah, there you have it. Veritas. More than 5 minutes, but I guess he forgot about it. Oh, yeah. So, okay. So, Chipmunk says the answer to the riddle. Veritas says, what riddle? Okay, so this is, yeah, so this is Not very well. The memory here on this thing is not very good. Very the riddle you asked a little bit ago. I haven't asked a riddle. Okay, yeah. Chipmunk says, "I think I ticked it off." Something happened there. I don't know what happened there. So we found the weakness there with Veritas. Thank you again, Chipmunk. So, if you're just jumping on here, if you didn't catch the beginning of the live stream, in the last couple days, I've received actually a couple notices from YouTube asking, well, informing me really that there's a new feature that YouTube has that we can use, and this is a feature which we can start a live stream initially as a open public live stream, and then seamlessly transition to a members only live stream at using a timer. And I thought it would be worth giving it a shot. We have been using our members only live chats through the week, and so I took off the members only feature on the live chat for the sake of trying this out instead. So what we're going to do here is we're going to set a timer, and we'll see how it goes. Apparently, what happens, I don't know. Actually, I've never done this before, and I've never been on a live stream that ever did this, so I don't know. I don't personally know what's going to happen. So it's kind of a leap in the dark here. So we'll see. However, the way that it was conveyed to me is when the timer's up, and y'all should see the timer. At least those of you who are not members shall see the timer. When the timer's up, those who are members of the channel will seamlessly transition into the members only part of the live stream. Those of you who are not members yet will be given the opportunity to become a member. There might be a little thing that pops up on your screen or whatever the case is. So we're going to try this out, and before I do this, I just like to also add that if you are listening to this and you're not a member, and you find value here, please do consider becoming a member. It's a matter of just clicking the join button, or you can wait until the timer's up if you want and take it from there. Clicking the button underneath, clicking the join button, or the link in the description, becoming a member, it is so little to begin. Like there's several different tiers that you can choose from, but the bottom of the rung tier, if you will, is very, very minimal, nominal. It works out to be like 12 cents US a day. Like it's just like less than half, well, like half a quarter. Just basically to throw in the pot, so to speak, to say thank you, Christopher. Here's just to help pitch in on to support what you're doing here. It works out to be something like $3 and something US a month, $4.99 Canadian, that is. So we're going to start this, and so when the timer is up, I'm going to focus only on YouTube and YouTube live chat. But those of you who are across all the other platforms, you can, within the next 15 minutes, feel free to enter any kind of questions, prayer requests, anything like that, whatever you wish. Okay. I'm not sure what you guys see or if you see anything. Chipmunk says, does Bert and Bina do a timer? I don't know. I don't know if Bert and Bina would do a timer. All right. Okay. Do we have any questions for Bert and Bina or anything like that? We can try it out if you wish. Okay. Okay, well let's continue with Judges chapter 1 verse 11. From there he went against the inhabitants of Debir. The name of Debir before that was Kiriath Sefer. Kiriath Sefer. So this would be like the city of books, I suppose. The Kiriath would be like city, and Sefer would be another name for a book or a scroll. Caleb said, I will give Aksa, my daughter, as wife to the man who strikes Kiriath Sefer and takes it. Othniel, son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, took it. So he gave him Aksa, his daughter, as his wife. When she came, she got him to ask her father for a field. She got off her donkey, and Caleb said to her, What would you like? She said to him, Give me a blessing, because you have set me in the land of the south. Give me also springs of water. Then Caleb gave her the upper springs and the lower springs. Okay, so in this passage, we have starting with verse 10, we got Hebron that used to be called Kiriath Arba. And then we have in verse 11, we have Debir, Kiriath Sefer. So this means city of the book. It can also be a little bit more of a figure, or it can the definition of this name can be extended to mean the city of the scribe. You can put it that way as well. The city of the scribe. So this suggests that it may have been a Canaanite administrative or cultural center, a center of education. Chipmunk says, was it a specific book? I'm not sure. Maybe we can ask Bert and Bina about that one. Chipmunk? Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think it tells us specifically there or explicitly if this actually meant a specific book. Okay, let's see if we can get Bert and Bina on board here and ask them. If you're wondering who Bert and Bina is, this is our virtual hosts, if you will, co-hosts that we can ask AI assistants. It's a podcast feature, actually. It's almost like a podcast. All right, just a second here. All right, it's been a little while since we brought Bert and Bina in, so let's do it. Hopefully this will work.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really getting into the weeds, skipping the usual summaries and going straight into some, Hey there.
Hey there.
Want to share your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I got a question. In Judges chapter 1, it talks about a city of Kiriath-Sefer, which is like the other name of Debir, I think it is, or Debir. Now, that means city of a book or city of the book. What book? Would it be a specific book that it's talking about? Do you know, like, historically what this book may be?
That is a fantastic, deeply specific question.
We love the deep cuts. Kiriath-Sefer or Kiriath-Sana.
Okay, let's unpack this. You're right.
It translates to city of the book.
And it was an ancient city in the territory of Judah.
The city of Debir, as it was later known.
Given that name, City of the Book, you'd think there was one specific book.
A central archive, maybe a library, or a very famous scroll.
Historically, though, pinpointing which book is tough.
We don't have a single source saying this is the book of Kiriath-Sefer.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture of the time,
It would likely be something foundational.
perhaps ancient laws, boundary records, or a detailed history of the local clans and families.
Genealogy and Rand claims were essential, right up until David's reign.
Think about the detail in West Chronicles 4.
All those specific cities and villages mentioned.
Their settlements and keeping their genealogy.
So the book might have been the repository of their entire social and religious identity.
That's why it was so important to conquer it.
Taking the city meant controlling its knowledge and its history.
Great question. Thanks for chiming in with that insight on historical names.
Names matter a lot in these texts.
They really do. Now back.
Well, there you go. Thank you for asking, Chipmunk. Awesome question. And yeah, it brings a little bit more light into the actual the context of what we're reading here. So this is why, I can't say for sure, of course, but it seems like this could be the very reason why they chose this particular city to go up against this city and to take this city, seeing that it is like the administrative, cultural, or religious hub of that area and in that culture. Very interesting stuff. Thanks, Chipmunk, again. That's amazing. Yeah, so that's a very interesting thing there. So we also have in this text, Chipmunk says, intersection didn't even think of genealogy being an option. Seems like it could be a lot of info. It could be a lot of info what it was. Yeah, it could be a lot of the secrets of the kings of, who knows? Like, it could have been like some really, really important information, knowledge, and records there. Very interesting. Thanks again, Chipmunk. Awesome stuff. Awesome. So we have Aksa, Caleb's daughter, that she asks for springs of water. Okay? So this isn't just a family squabble, if you will. This is like in a very dry region of the land, the Negev. Water rights were it's almost like the equivalent of gold in those days. So her boldness in demanding the upper and the lower springs here in verse 15. Well, Caleb gave her the upper and the lower springs. So this shows her securing her family's fortune, if you will, economic future at least. So it's a story of resource control. Very, very interesting. So verse 16. Let's read here from 16. We'll read the next. Let's read on from 16 through to the end of the chapter. I'm not sure how things are going in regards to the timer and everything. How many of you guys see a timer? Are you those of you who are members? Do you see a timer? I'm not sure about the non-members. The non-members, I understand, should be seeing a timer here. Okay. Seek the Lord says yes. Okay, thank you, Seek the Lord. I don't see a timer here on my end at all, so it's kind of weird. Okay. So verse 22, no, actually verse 16 we left off. Verse 16. Seek the Lord says yes, and Chipmunk says, I see a timer, don't ask. Don't ask. You know who on time. Thank you. Thanks for letting me know, guys. The children of the Canaanite, Moses' brother-in-law, went up out of the city of palm trees with the children of Judah into the wilderness of Judah, which is the south of Arad. And they went and lived with the people. Judah went with Simeon, his brother, and they struck the Canaanites who inhabited Zaphath, and utterly destroyed it. The name of the city was called Hormah. Also Judah took Gaza and its border, and Ashkelon with its border, and Ekron with its border. Yahweh was with Judah and drove out the inhabitants of the hill country, for he could not drive out the inhabitants of the valley, because they had chariots of iron. And they gave Hebron to Caleb, as Moses had said, and he drove the 3 sons of Anak out of there. The children of Benjamin didn't drive out the Jebusites who inhabited Jerusalem, but the Jebusites dwell with the children of Benjamin in Jerusalem to this day. The house of Joseph also went up against Bethel, and Yahweh was with them. The house of Joseph sent out to spy Bethel. The name of the city before that was Luz, or Luz, L-U-Z, most likely pronounced as Luz. The watchers saw a man come out of the city, and they said to him, Please show us the entrance into the city, and we will deal kindly with you. He showed them the entrance into the city, and they struck the city with the edge of the sword, but they let the man and all his family go. The man went into the land of the Hittites, built a city, and called its name Luz, which is its name to this day. Manasseh didn't drive out the inhabitants of Beth Shean and its towns, nor Tanakh and its towns, nor the inhabitants of Dor and